If you're not cryptoed out yet, then you should continue listening. But if you've had enough of the crypto stuff, go back and listen to me talk to Dan Aykroyd. We don't talk about that at all. I got to talk more about crypto. It is absolutely everywhere. It's taking over absolutely everything. You can't just steal $75 billion and not have it affect almost every lawyer in the United States of America. It is everywhere. It's omnipresent, this crypto thing. And I got to tell you, I mean, I would say a year ago, crypto was just the thing that appeared in my social media feed when a friend got hacked and there was some half-naked stripper all of a sudden posting in their account about how you can make all this money on Bitcoin or something. I really was paying no attention. I think like probably most people my age, that's the point where Evan usually looks at me, gives me some look of affirmation, acknowledging that I'm now elderly and he's young Evan. Extremely elderly. You guys I appreciate, don't want to see this. Yeah, thank you. That's why this is audio and not video. So this stuff, it just started appearing. And I just thought, oh, this is just more scam stuff. I played a couple episodes ago. I played you Warren Buffett talking about how this is all just nothing, that it's just backed by nothing. It is nothing. He owns none of it. He's got no interest in any of it. And that has always kind of been my view, that this is just an economy built on arms dealing, drug dealing, and international terrorism, just for the sake of money laundering. It just seems so obvious and so easy. But it's everywhere. I've learned a lot. I don't pretend to be a crypto expert of any kind, or really, frankly, to understand it all that well. It's an asset. It's a currency. I just know that people who are contacting me in my practice and the cases that I'm now starting to file are the result of people with actual money having it transferred into crypto and then stolen from them on a massive scale, something that we are making every effort to get back. But when you're talking about, at least as of a year ago, $75 billion, you've got your work cut out for you. That's a lot of money to try and get back. That's already in the pockets of Chinese mafia, international terrorists, Russians, all kinds of ne'er-do-wells who have no intention of giving it back. So it's a big effort. And there is a lot going on. So the first question in my mind, first question that occurs to me as this is all happening may seem a little basic. And I know it's nothing that's ever occurred to young Evan because he sort of grew up knowing, what is crypto? As much as we've talked about crypto, the slave trade that follows it, the untold number of crimes that support it, we've never really talked about what it is. Is it electronic money? Is it a commodity? What is it? And so I thought we needed to take a step back in this conversation about how we're trying to recover as much of it as humanly possible. And I thought, who better to talk to about these basics and then move on to a little more sophistication than one of the experts that we are working with to try and find this crypto, these assets, when they are stolen. After they're stolen, a client contacts me and I then call someone who knows what they're doing, what they're looking at, where to look, how to look, when to look. I call Schwartz Associates in Houston. Mark Schwartz is the founder of Schwartz Associates. He has been an economist and usually a testifying expert in all kinds of commercial cases for years. He is the go-to guy. He knows everything about economics. He runs a forensics firm that includes investigation. And the incredibly knowledgeable and skillful crypto expert that he's got on staff at Schwartz Associates is my friend Chris Roberts, who I've been working with on these matters. Chris, welcome to Geoff Berg is Litigious. I'm your host, Geoff Berg, as you probably know from listening to all previous episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on, Geoff.
Chris, it is a real pleasure to have you here. I want to get right to it and take advantage of your depth of knowledge in this area. Chris is an MBA. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. So I'm just going to start. First, Chris, tell me a little, just give me a little backstory. You're an expert in this area. How did you become so?
So I've got 20-something years experience in financial services. So I really came into it from the investment side. And a true story briefly here is a good friend of mine was a roommate in college. He owns a couple IT firms. And so he calls me one day, and this is about 2015-ish. And he says, man, I've got this Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I'm up big on it. You know all about investments. What should I do with it? And I said, okay, well, I thought that was your world in the computer space. I don't really know anything about it at that point. And so that was really what got me to start to take a further look at it. I've heard about it, knew about it at that time. But that's when I really started to dig in a little bit more. Again, from an investment angle, and what's this investment, and how can we make money here, and how can we get involved? But then getting into understanding the technology, understanding the other use cases beyond just the number goes up because I bought it yesterday at 10,000, now it's 12,000. And so, it's been a process. The investigation side, really over the last year and a half to 2 years, we've gotten involved using some proprietary and some partnerships with some of the premier blockchain analysis software tools. And that's what's really given us the ability to dive into and have a positive results from investigations.
Let's back up a little bit. This is going to seem like a dumb question, and I don't mind sounding dumb by asking it. What is cryptocurrency?
So it's not a dumb question. You're probably in the majority that would have the same question. And again, it wasn't that long ago that I would have the same question. So cryptocurrency is the digital assets that are being traded and transacted on the blockchain. So you'll hear these terms, kind of corresponding together. So it might be better if we talk about blockchain technology, how that works, and then I think you're going to easily be able to see the cryptocurrency inside there, because that's really the main things that's being transacted on blockchains. There's a few other things, but we'll probably stay focused there.
Yeah, that's fine. And for the record, I know what it is. Just in case there are any prospective clients or referring lawyers listening, I do know. I'm asking so that for those who were in the situation I was in and you were in not that long ago, I want them to have an idea of what it is and why this has sort of exploded in the way that it has. But okay, let's back up. Let's talk about the blockchain, because that is a term specific to this economy. What's a blockchain? What is it we're talking about?
So the easiest way I explain it to people is think and envision for those of us that are old enough, and young Evan may not be, that have used a check, that have used a checkbook with a check register. And you had to log all your transactions going in and out. You didn't have the Chase Bank app that you could just see all your transactions on there. So if you envision that single page and you're logging transactions line by line by line, right? Money going in, money going out. That's what is occurring on the blockchain. So it's logging it's a digital ledger, basically logging these transactions from one party to another. And so if we start with that visualization, think of one page, we're logging these transactions line by line by line. We get to the end of the page, that page is full. And now we got to turn the page and we got to start the next page. Well, those pages in the blockchain space, in the digital world, same thing, we're logging those transactions, but now it's on what's called a block. That block is where all these transactions are getting recorded. Just a distributed ledger, a digital ledger of all these transactions, all on one block. That block gets full. Thousands of transactions can be on one block. And then we turn the page, we start a new block. That block has transactions logged, and these blocks get chained together. And there comes your term blockchain. So that's a visual that I think helps a lot of people understand, and it's not as complicated as it sounds. There are certainly complications. You get into mining and all these other terms involved. But really what we're talking about is a distributed ledger, transactions being logged digitally, and it goes from block to block as those transactions fill up a particular block.
Okay, so that's the blockchain. It's essentially a public, it's key, public record of transactions. Is that right?
Yeah, so two key factors for what we do, and it comes to, and we say it preserves evidence perfectly, is it is public record. It's also immutable. Those transactions, there's no eraser, can't go back and change a transaction. Those transactions are logged, it's immutable, it's public. So all the information's there. Being able to decipher it is where you start to bring in some of the tools and experts, but it's all there, it's immutable, it can't be changed, and it's public.
So you can log on to a website that has access to the blockchain and see any transaction you want. Is that right?
Correct. So they're called block explorers, and yes, you could see that.
Okay, so you can go into a block explorer and you can see these transactions. Now, I think it's key, really important, that one of the things that attracts people to this economy, this area of exchange, is that it is anonymous. It's public, but it's also anonymous. So explain the anonymity aspect of this. So if you go on, for example, you're on Facebook and you go to Facebook Marketplace. Again, know your audience. I suspect my audience probably knows Facebook and Facebook Marketplace. You go on there and you say, I need new crochet needles. And someone says, I have crochet needles that I am willing to sell you. Well, they're just using their accounts. They're just Grandma Jackson and Grandpa Smith are just talking to each other on Facebook through the marketplace. How is it different on the blockchain? Why is it anonymous? And how can it possibly be anonymous if it's all public?
So what you see on the public explorers, you do see those transactions. You can even watch as transactions get confirmed and happen. But what you see is not Geoff Berg is sending funds to Chris Roberts. What you see is a digital address, what's called a wallet or a digital address. So think of that like a bank account number. It's going to be 20 to 40 alphanumeric characters. So unless I knew Jeff's specific numbers for that specific wallet, I can see that transaction happening, but I can't understand at that level with that public information that that's Jeff and Chris doing a transaction. All I see is it's this long digital number transacting with another long digital number.
Okay, so there you can get on the blockchain. You can see these transactions in real time as they're happening. You can see this wallet with this long string of alphanumeric characters, 30 characters, and it looks like capital W, lowercase n, uppercase P, and then 4, and it's on like that for 30 characters, sending $25 million to another wallet. And you can be on the blockchain and see that happening in real time. You have no idea what it's for, who it's from, or who it's to, other than those addresses, which are themselves not public, the owners of which are not public. Now, let's get back to the original question, because this is the term everybody hears: cryptocurrency. What they're sending to one another on the blockchain is cryptocurrency.
Right.
So you're sending one Bitcoin today is worth $90,000 or so, right? As of November 15th, 2024. Okay. One Bitcoin, $90,000. My wallet receives from young Evan's wallet one Bitcoin. Thank you, by the way, for that, Evan. I receive a full Bitcoin. You can't tell. You have no idea who sent it to whom, but you can see the wallet addresses, and you can see Evan's wallet sending Jeff's wallet a full Bitcoin. Okay, I'm thrilled. I've got a full Bitcoin that is the equivalent of $90,000. What is that? What is a Bitcoin? What is crypto? Bitcoin is cryptocurrency. What is it?
So it is a digital asset, and it can be a bit nebulous, but it's just a digital currency, and there are thousands of cryptocurrencies out there. Some do have specific utilization or use cases beyond just a transaction. So I would encourage those who really want to get into the weeds on it. You can Google Bitcoin white paper. The creator of Bitcoin has a white paper, and it goes into great detail. But the focus of that was to create a digital currency that has no centralized governing body. So that was kind of the initial ethos of it. So was used for transactional purposes. But since then, there's been a lot of advances where you can use them for tracing, supply chain management. There's use cases there, use cases for the unbanked. So the third world countries are one of the fastest growing because a lot of them may not have access to a bank or bank account, but they have access to the internet. And with that, they can do these digital transactions.
Okay, so $1 is worth $1. And whatever the dollar is worth, or whatever that means, you know it has value because it's backed by the United States of America. The euro has value because it's backed by the European Union. The ruble, such as it is, has value because it's backed by the central bank of Russia. And so you know that that's where the value comes from. I mean, we're not on the gold standard anymore, but it's the full faith and credit of the United States that backs our dollar. Australia's dollar is backed by Australia. And so you know there's value there. We've got this huge economy, this developed economy. Russia has a terrible economy, and so its currency doesn't have much value. What backs cryptocurrency? How is a Bitcoin worth $90,000?
So that's really a factor of markets, and buyers and sellers and what they're willing to pay for it, or what they're willing to sell it for. Bitcoin is unique in the world of cryptocurrency, not just because it's the most well known in the original, but it has a finite supply. There will only ever be a little over 21 million Bitcoin issued. It's issued in a set standard methodology, and that gets into crypto mining and Bitcoin mining, which is a whole nother days of topic. But that scarcity is what can drive that value. But ultimately, it's not backed by gold. It's not backed by the US dollar. it fluctuates quite volatile, high, lows. It's pretty volatile if you look over time. We're at a good time right now from the price of Bitcoin, but that's all a function of market forces, who's buying, who's selling. Earlier this year, you have the SEC approves Bitcoin ETFs, which allows some institutional buyers direct access. And so you've seen close to $100 billion flow in there in assets under management. So those are the buyers and retail buyers, individuals. And so some is for use cases for transactional purposes. So the unbanked that can't get to a bank and they can get to internet and transact digitally, and cross-border transactions. It's very cheap and effective to do that compared to Western Union or something like that you may be transferring funds
Well,
with.
pretty easy way to cheat on taxes too, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's back to the record's all there. So if someone discovers that that's your wallet, now the trail's all there. You can't burn that trail down.
Okay. So there's risk involved as well. All right. So let's talk about what you and I, what Chris Roberts from Schwartz Associates and I, Geoff Berg of Geoff Berg is Litigious, have been doing in this world. So you've got a person who has had, I don't know, a major catastrophe in their life. They've been conned out of every penny they have. They've converted it all into cryptocurrency because they've been told that there is an exchange where they can, by someone they thought they could trust, where they have been told they are going to make a lot of money speculating on the value of cryptocurrency. Chris, you mentioned that it fluctuates in value. It's very volatile, but it fluctuates and people can and have made substantial amounts of money. So they're told, oh, there's this super secret exchange you can go to that I will tell you about, and you're probably going to make all of this money. Of course, it's all a lie, and it's just a way to steal people's money. So they come to me, they come to Chris, and they say, I've lost everything, and can you find my cryptocurrency? Chris you have said, this is all on the blockchain. It's all transparent. There's a ledger and it's immutable. You cannot do anything about it. There's a record there that has been created. Okay. I come to you with a client, as I have many times before, and say, Chris, this client has lost everything. Here are the relevant wallet addresses. As you say, those wallet addresses are public and can be tracked. So you use this particularized type of software. What do you do first to try and find this stolen cryptocurrency? How do you do this?
So you mentioned there one of the key, we had to have a starting point. Now, sometimes we can do kind of traditional sleuthing and forensics accounting to find a starting point. But the best, easiest, and in a scam situation is almost always easy to get, is where's the address that the scammer was telling the victim to send money to?
The wallet
The
address.
wallet address, right? So that long alphanumeric string. Where were they telling you to send the money? And so with that alphanumeric string, that digital wallet address, we can begin the investigation. So the software we use and have partnership with, they're the premier in the business in blockchain analytics. They've faced Dalbert challenges and earlier this year.
Dal, since you've now used a buzzword, I must define it unless Evan wants to jump in. Evan is very advanced in his legal study. Young Evan, you want to take a shot at Dalbert?
Dalbert, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have no idea. please enlighten me.
I'm very you do the reading next time, young man. Dalbert, it means an expert challenge. There's a standard set out in a case called Dalbert, and it essentially says you have to establish the scientific credibility of any expertise or any tool used by an expert in order for it to be admissible as expert evidence. When someone says Dalbert, that's shorthand for expert. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted, but I suspect there are non-lawyers listening, and
Perfect.
I want them to be able to or I said non-lawyers. I should have just said people who. So therefore, since we have actual humans listening, they need to be able to understand.
So no, I appreciate that, and the point of it is that it has stood in the fire and tested and been proven credible and admissible, and that's important, obviously, when you're dealing with a case or a scam and you're trying to recover those funds. So once we have that address, we can work with the software and start to see all of the transactions where money was coming into the wallet, the scammer's wallet, we'll call it here today. So all the money coming into the scam wallet, we can see all of those transactions and where they came from. So we can, again, those addresses, we'll see all of those addresses where they came from. And then we can also see where that money has gone. And that's obviously the important part as we try to trace down to recover funds is where do the funds go? Where do they sit now? And so it may often go through think of like a tangled spider web of wallet to wallet to wallet as they start to try to launder that money through. Eventually getting to some endpoint. At some point, they're likely to try to off-road it to fiat. And we want to be able to
Fiat is what?
Cash, dollars, traditional dollars, or
Currency.
traditional currency.
So just to back up a little bit. So in what we do, and Chris, when we go to court, Chris will, before we go, send me charts. When he says spider web, I think of it as spokes. There's a center point and just spokes going more than you can count, of each one representing a flow of cryptocurrency in and out of wallets. So when you first look at something like this, you see there's a wallet sitting there with all of this stolen money. Number one, we know immediately it's stolen because the client, the victim, is told your money is sitting on an exchange and is appreciating in value. Well, if you go on the blockchain and you look at where that cryptocurrency went, you can see it's not sitting in an exchange. It's sitting in some scammer's wallet, not in an exchange. It's not being used to invest. It's sitting there in their pocket. So that's first and foremost. We can see that you've been lied to. We can see that you've been stolen from. Why is it? Here I think is the first sort of logical question someone would ask who's not all that familiar with cryptocurrency, Chris. You can go to the police and say, this wallet address has my cryptocurrency and won't give it back. Why can't the police just go knock on somebody's door and take everything that's in that wallet?
So that's back to the wallet address, the public record. It's raw data. It's just simply that wallet address, string of numbers and letters. And it does not tie that information alone is not tying that to an individual or an address that you can go knock on the door and say, hey, give us back the money. So that's the difficulty, and that's where our software capabilities and the years that the software has been put together, they've actually identified through various sources and over time in various investigations, been able to tie almost 2 billion digital wallets to the real world entity. So when we look at these, oftentimes we can see it's not some nameless alphanumeric number. It's actually Coinbase. I'm going to use that as an example for a very well-known exchange here in the U.S. And so we can see the entity. And so if you don't have that capability, it is very difficult to just look at the public record and see that long string of numbers and letters and say, okay, well, how do we get that long string of numbers and letters to give us the money back?
And there are, in fact, I'm going to go back a little bit to something I mentioned before and something, Chris, you alluded to. There are plenty of legitimate exchanges where you can speculate. You can bet that Bitcoin is going to increase in value, and you can have an app, just like if you're using Schwab or any other legitimate investment center, a traditional investment vehicle, you can do that with crypto, right? I mean, there are plenty of legitimate investment. Okay. And so just because you're being told it's a crypto investment doesn't ipso facto make it a scam. But if somebody is coming out of nowhere and telling you they've got this great crypto investment, you should be extremely cautious and suspicious and critical in your scrutiny of this type of come on. It's because it is likely in this context a scam. And particularly if you're Googling it or if you're trying to look it up and it doesn't appear anywhere, because that's how these scams are run. All right, so back to how you find where this stuff goes after it's stolen. You can see these spokes, this spider web, showing the flow of all of this crypto, and you can identify what's stolen. You can't necessarily say this part's legitimate, but you can certainly look at it and say, this is where our victims' money came from, crypto came from, and this is where it went, right?
Correct.
And you can see, because as I understand it, the software you use is the same software, the same open source software that's used by law enforcement and other investigators who have access to it and can mark what is known to be a scammer's wallet, a thief's wallet. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So they're identifying these wallets. Some of it's proprietary intelligence that they gather. They work with the U.S. government on large ransomware cases and things along those lines. So it'll identify sanctioned entities that are using cryptocurrency. You mentioned like Russia and things like that. There's several known hacker organizations there or in North Korea. So all of those kind of things over the years, that proprietary intelligence. And then there's other issues that they can gather from pattern recognition and various AI and machine learning algorithms that can start to identify those wallets to the real world entity.
Okay. So this is a developing and growing enterprise, I want to say, this investigation into cryptocurrency. I mean, my understanding of the whole crypto world is that one of the draws is this sort of very libertarian, leave us alone, we don't want any central bank or government interference or monitoring of what we're doing. But that is starting to be balanced a little bit with the actual need to enforce the law, because this is becoming, as far as I can tell, just a cesspool of money laundering. As far as I know, because all I really see of this is what I hear from clients, which is I was scammed by people telling me to trade crypto. To me, from where I sit, it just looks like a gigantic, mammoth money laundering operation that's used only by terrorists, drug dealers, and arms dealers. I mean, I can't imagine that that's actually what it is. So what is it that you see as an expert in this world that is different than what I'm describing?
Yeah. So there is billions of dollars involved in the scams. But on the whole, globally, with blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, it's under 2%. Some stats have it around 0.34 was a recent stat I saw. But suffice to say, less than 2% of the value received on chain cryptocurrency is actually tied to illicit activities. Overall, and to give you some perspective dollar wise, globally 5.7 trillion in the last year. So I believe that was from June to July 23 to 24, June to July, was 5.7 trillion worldwide. In the US, or North America, excuse me, in North America was 1.3 trillion. So large numbers, very small percent, about 2% is illicit activity. But that 2% is still a large dollar amount when we're talking about folks that are being scammed. So you're seeing that side of it because that's the world that is coming to you with the clients that are coming to you. But it's being used. There's a recent survey with Fortune 500 executives, over 56%, so over half the executives in Fortune 500 companies stated that their firm has blockchain projects. It's over 2,000. Last I saw was close to 2,500 U.S. businesses accept cryptocurrency for payment. Some of them do it because the transactional fees are relatively cheap compared to a 3 or 4% on a credit card transaction. 77% said that, and 85% said that they see it as a means to attract new customers. So it's businesses are taking it in, retail, merchant services, payment processing, those kind of factors. And it's not just the scams that you see. But nonetheless, the scams are an incredible amount of dollars.
Yeah. So just by comparison, if let's just say 3% of what occurs on the blockchain or what occurs in the cryptocurrency space is attributable to fraud or theft or something like that, something untoward, illicit activity, how does that compare to the regular, let's call it the regular economy, the dollar economy? What's the percentage of dollars exchanged that are in illicit transactions? Because to me, it seems disproportionate in the crypto space. I don't know that it is, and it could be, as you say, just because that's what I see. People come to me and say, I've been scammed. And to them, as you point out rightly, to them, it's 100%, because more than one person who's contacted me has lost absolutely everything they had. Everything, every penny they had. I've talked to people who are suicidal because they've lost everything and they're going to be sleeping under a bridge. So to them, it's the entire world. And that's what I see of cryptocurrency. And that's probably what I don't truly understand. But if 3% of it is illicit activity, how does that compare to the dollar?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't have the answer, Geoff. I'm sure that's a stat we could locate, but I would suspect more than 3% of U.S. dollars are used in illicit activity. But
that's my thought too. Because I was surprised.
Drug trade and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I remember seeing once that something like 80% of paper money had cocaine residue on it. So I mean, that by itself is an incredibly telling statistic. Okay, I don't want to eat up your entire day, Chris Roberts. You've been very generous with your time, and you're going to be much more generous with your time in court when you're testifying in these cases. Let's talk about the end of this. So the beginning and the middle is someone's been the victim of a cryptocurrency scam. They go to, where do they go, young Evan? BergPC.com. Berg, B-E-R-G, PC.com, when they've been the victim of a crypto scam. That's right. You go to Berg, B-E-R-G, PC.com. You've been the victim of this scam. You contact me. Then I email Chris. And I say, let's trace this potential client's crypto transactions and see if we can't find some assets. Now, when we do this, occasionally what we'll find, as Chris and I did on a call earlier this week or last week, that they're just a bunch of dormant wallets, that there's nothing we can do because the wallets that we are able to locate just don't have anything coming into them. So we have to assume they're dead, they're dormant, there's nothing in them, and there's therefore not much we can do. On the other hand, as you and I discussed today in another case, Chris, we saw wallets that have recently had $40-50 million flowing into them. When you see that, explain how you're able to, I've been calling it backtrace. Is that a fair description of what we've been talking about? Backtrace?
Yeah, I've just used the word trace, but sure, backtrace.
Okay. Well, you don't have to mock me for being overly wordy on that, but you go right ahead. Talk about tracing in forward or reverse.
Yeah, I mean, so
This is what you get when you talk to a forensic investigator. Go ahead.
So you're going to be able to see all those transactions. Again, it's public record. Now, what we're able to do is, with the software, start to identify the entities, start to identify and create a structured visual so that it's digestible for all of us, for judge, jury, whoever it may be, so we can help to identify exactly and visually where the funds went, trace each of those transactions from step to step to step, and ultimately hope to get to an endpoint that we go back to Geoff with, and he says, "Man, that's an endpoint that we can take action upon," and they'll be responsive to that. And that's one like we talked this morning on. One thing that might be, as far as the individuals that get scammed, and they certainly should contact you at
Berg PC. Berg, BERG, PC.com.
I was hoping for the music drop.
It's coming. When you see him moving around like that,
there we go.
BergPC.com. That's he loves doing that.
But that for folks to understand, these can come in a number of different manners, but often it is, you alluded to it, it's some type of relationship that gets built online, right? And typically online or through WhatsApp, or someone that you're not normally meeting in person. It's not normally your best friend, although I've seen that before too. But it's going to be some somewhat anonymous person that you met in some chat somewhere on some type of app, and they're going to start to build a relationship with you, and we call that a romance scam or pig butchering, where they're going to start to build that relationship, and now they told you about this investment opportunity. Man, you should send this crypto into this deal, and we're just making so much money over here. And that's where it starts. Then they contact you, you contact us, we start doing the research and seeing where all those the spokes of the wheels go from that scammer's wallet.
And go ahead.
Well, as I say, and then ultimately we hope to see where's the end point, and that's where you come back into play as far as here's the end point, and is this an exchange? Because they've got to off-road it to cash it in at some point. Typically they will, and that's where we want to be able to kind of cut them off at the pass and get those funds before they further obfuscate them.
And we think that it's doable. This is all very new. It's all very cutting edge, and the law is really not entirely caught up. So it's all new. This is, if I do say so myself, some pioneering work. It's kind of the cutting edge of what's possible right now, and we're pushing the envelope and trying very hard to recover as much of this as humanly possible, and absolutely go to war with these. I don't even know how to describe the sociopathy that it takes to inflict the kind of harm that these scammers are inflicting. Sociopath doesn't really cut it. These are psychopathic narcissists, organized criminals, violent too, as I understand it, and do not care how many lives they ruin in pursuit of their own individual wealth, the benefit to themselves, the more we can do to hurt them, the better it's going to be for all of humanity. Chris Roberts, you are the expert of experts. It's great to talk to you. Anything we missed that you wanted to add but didn't?
No, I mean, I would think that we've covered a lot of ground. It is cutting edge, and there's a lot to learn in it, and we could spend days on it. I will say, when you mentioned, we wind up somewhere with 40, 50 million, 30 million, 20 million, and they're not scamming one person for 20 million, right? So you get one victim that contacts you and they've lost 40,000, 400,000, 2 million. But oftentimes that's what they do. They're not just scamming one person. So we often find that it's not, unfortunately, not one victim that's lost their whole living. It's potentially hundreds of victims that have lost their whole livelihood. So we're certainly have more vested in it than just financially. I do feel a lot for some of the victims we talk to in their mental situation that they're in now, because it can be a substantial loss, and so we want to do the best we can for them.
What a great point. That is such an important point. That's why we file these as class actions, because when we find wallets with that kind of money in it, or apparently that has gone through it in recent time, then we will file it as a class action to get relief for the largest number of people, because as you say, it's not one person who's lost 40, 50, 60 million dollars that we've seen going into a particular wallet. It's a whole group of people. And what is going on the other side is that it is a big business. If just one account held by your business has $60 million flowing through it in a 2 or 3 month period of time, you're running a very big business. And that's what this criminal enterprise is. It's a very big business. And when you see that type of money, you know that this is from hundreds, maybe thousands of people who have lost $100, $500, $5,000, $500,000, but they're pooling it, they're aggregating it in individual wallets they own. And they own untold numbers of wallets. And we're out there looking for them. And with the help of Chris Roberts at his firm, Schwartz Associates, we're going to have some success finding a great deal of this stolen cryptocurrency and getting some relief to the people who've had their lives turned upside down. And eventually, as I said in last week's episode, hopefully someday, though this is entirely out of our hands, getting some relief to the human beings being held in slavery by these absolute subhuman goons who are holding human chattel to do their dirty work for them. All right, I think that's it. Chris Roberts, can't thank you enough for being so generous with your time and your expertise.
Thank you,
Very,
Geoff.
very, very good to have you here. I was just about to thank young Evan for yet another week of tremendous production and absolutely outstanding mustache display. Young Evan Shear, very grateful to you as always. And of course, the boss of bosses, the big man himself, executive producer Scott Braddock, who is, well, he's the executive producer. And I can't thank him enough. He does a great job here and on social media. You don't see everything he does. You should, of course, be listening to the Texas Take every week and reading the Quorum Report. And that way you know what a big shot Scott Braddock is. All right, more on this to come, no doubt. I'll see you next week. Bye.